Hello?
Yeah.
Diksha, shall we start?
Yeah. Sir, starting
Okay.
5:30. Okay. 20 already 30 minutes.
Shall I start, sir?
Yes.
Go ahead, James.
Good evening, everybody. Today, we'd like to introduce our topic for today. Just a moment. Is Mahila Sadhikarta Vidhi Vidhanalu, Women Empowerment Policies in India. Good evening, everybody. We welcome you to Telangana Jana Vedika's 384th session this Sunday evening. We welcome you all. And so we have chosen a very important topic on empowerment of women in India and their policies. And why this topic is very important is because, as we can see, in 1883, the great feminist, abolitionist, and sociologist Matilda Gage wrote an essay on woman as an inventor, in which she says that at that time, even in 1883, it was a very common assertion that women possess no inventive or mechanical genius. And she pointed out, although women's scientific education has been grossly neglected, some of the most important inventions of the world are due to her. For many women, claiming credit for their inventions was a futile exercise. Their limited social and financial nobility meant that they could rarely reap the benefits of their work or fully exercise their inventive powers. For example, in 1944, Lise Meitner was sidelined from the Nobel Prize Award after helping discover the physical characters of nuclear fission in one of the biggest collaborative discoveries of the century. It was a collaborative discovery, and she was sidelined. And only her male partner alone he received the Nobel Prize. Again, in the 1950s, physicist Qian Wu devised a groundbreaking experiment to prove that parity is not conserved. For this discovery, her two male colleagues received the Nobel Prize. And even Mileva Maric, Albert Einstein's first wife and fellow trained physicist, is now, after so many years, is now thought to have either been deliberately for strategic reasons, or she's been sidelined, or because of unconscious traditional stereotyping. We are witness to countless examples like this since time immemorial, and in all civilizations across all social strata, that women have not been receiving their credit and they are not being able to rise to their potential. By not empowering women, humanity is losing out in contributions to science and research, economy and commerce, and the various fields of education disciplines. And we need to assess, do we have the right infrastructure to empower women in our society? In this context, on this topic for today of empowerment of women, I would like to introduce the speaker, Dr. Rama Rohini Garu.
James.
Hello?
Your audio is not, you are not audible for some of the participants, please.
Hello, okay. Can you hear me now? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear loud and clear.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yeah, James, continue, please.
Continue.
Dr. Sarvepalli Rama Rohini Garu She began her career as research associate with National University of Educational Planning and Administration in 1992. Ever since, she has worked in social development research sector, and it's been close to 30 years as she's been working in this sector. She conceptualizes, designs, and executes survey-based research following rigorous sampling procedure. In her professional journey, she has undertaken research and program schemes evaluation for the government of India and the various states, United Nations agencies supported programs, international NGOs, programs supported by philanthropic organizations such as Gates Foundation, Dell Foundation, Omidyar Network, Tata Trust, and many other supported programs based on theory of change. She has led many national level research and evaluation surveys in the thematic areas of health, education, livelihoods, financial inclusion, social protection, and their sub-themes. In all these thematic areas and its sub-thematic areas, women is cross-cutting and main focus. She has been a consultant to World Bank, CARE International, India chapter, Plan International, head of the knowledge management unit at Child International, head of the program assessment of Center for Financial Inclusion, and consultant to many other NGOs. She has helped consulting organizations to set up their social development research divisions. Presently, she is consultant to Deloitte Touche Tomash India. She has also been invited by Lok Sabha TV for their programs, Lok Manch, as a panelist to explain technicalities of opinion and exit poll surveys. She is a doctorate in political science with focus on women empowerment from Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia University, New Delhi. And she has done her MPhil and MA in political science from Delhi University. She has traveled almost all the states, across all the states in India, as she predominantly works in rural areas. She has seen many, many villages in the country. She has led teams comprising different ethnic groups and in different geographical areas, that is hilly and tribal areas, and insurgency affected states and their districts. Many of Dr. Rohini's research and evaluation reports have been published, and prominent among them are supporting safe and effective ARV treatment in India, HIV/AIDS Alliance, foretelling the crisis of HIV/AIDS, sexual and reproductive health and women in India, and many, many other publications has been published. We at Telangana Janavedika thought that Dr. Rohini Garu would be the right person to speak on the subject because she has hands-on experience across all areas of India in among all states, and gives me great pleasure to invite Dr. Rohini Garu to invite her as a speaker, and I request Dr. Aktota Srinivas Garu to moderate the session. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Telangana Janavedika Zoom ఆన్లైన్ మీటింగ్ కు వచ్చేసినటువంటి పెద్దలు సర్వేపల్లి రామ రోహిణి గారు మరియు వేదిక కన్వీనర్ రాము గారు మరియు ఇతర మిత్రులందరికీ సాయంకాల నమస్కారాలు తెలియజేస్తూ అందరికీ స్వాగతం, సుస్వాగతం. ఈ పాండమిక్ టైం లోపల, అంటే ఈ కరోనా సమయం లోపల మహిళా సాధికారిత విధి విధానాల గురించి మళ్ళొక్కసారి చర్చించుకోవడం అనేటువంటిది గొప్ప విషయంగానే భావిస్తూ, మంచి సబ్జెక్టు మనం ఎన్నుకున్నాం. చిన్న సబ్జెక్టు, పేరు చిన్నగా ఉంటది కానీ ఇది చాలా విశాలమైనటువంటి పెద్ద టాపిక్. ఇది ఒక పదం చాలా సింపుల్ గా మనకు కనిపించేటువంటి పదం ఏంటంటే ఉమెన్ ఎంపవర్మెంట్ అనేటువంటిది చిన్న అర్థంతో కనబడుతుంది, కానీ అది విశాలమైనటువంటి సబ్జెక్టు కలిగినటువంటి అంశంగా నేను భావిస్తున్నా. అంటే మహిళా సాధికారత విధి విధానాలు, ఉమెన్ ఎంపవర్మెంట్ పాలసీస్ అండ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఇన్ ఇండియా అనేటువంటి టాపిక్ ఎప్పటి నుండి చెప్పవచ్చు అంటే దేశం లోపల ఫ్రమ్ సతీ సాగమన చట్టం నుండి మొదలుకుంటే నేటి దిశ చట్టం వరకు ఉండేటువంటి అన్ని చట్టాలను కూడా ఈ యొక్క టాపిక్ లోపల మనం డిస్కస్ చేయవలసినటువంటి అవసరం ఉంటుంది. అంటే బ్రిటిష్ కాలంలో వచ్చినటువంటి సతీ సాగమన చట్టం ఏదైతే ఉందో, నాటి దగ్గర నుండి నేటి వరకు మహిళలకు వచ్చినటువంటి చట్టాలు ఏంటి, ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఏంటి, పాలసీస్ ఏంటి, అవన్నీ దిశా చట్టం వరకు చేసినటువంటి ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఏంటి, ఇవన్నీ కూడా మనం డిస్కస్ చేయవలసినటువంటి అవసరం ఎంతైనా ఉంది. అయితే ముఖ్యంగా మనకు 73, 74 కాన్స్టిట్యూషనల్ అమెండ్మెంట్ యాక్ట్ ఏదైతే ఉందో అంటే లోకల్ గవర్నమెంట్ కు సంబంధించినటువంటి చట్టము 73, 74వ రాజ్యాంగ సవరణలు మహిళలకు మొట్టమొదటిసారిగా ఈ దేశం లోపల రాజకీయ రిజర్వేషన్లు 33% రిజర్వేషన్ అనేటువంటిది 33% కల్పించడం అనేటువంటి జరిగింది. అంటే కేవలం మహిళలు అనేటువంటి వారు స్థానిక సంస్థల్లో అంటే మున్సిపాలిటీలో కానీ గ్రామ పంచాయతీ వ్యవస్థల్లో మాత్రమే మహిళలకు రాజకీయ అధికారం ఉండాలనేటువంటి ఒక ఉద్దేశమే తప్ప ఇక్కడ ఎమ్మెల్యేలు కానీ ఎంపీలు కానీ ఉండేటువంటి ఉద్దేశాన్ని ఈ దేశంలో ఉండేటువంటి రాజకీయ నాయకులకు రాజకీయ వ్యవస్థలకు ఏమాత్రము ఆలోచన శక్తి లేకుండా కేవలం వీళ్ళను మహిళలను కేవలం ఒక స్థానిక సంస్థలో మాత్రమే రాజకీయాలకు వీళ్ళు పనిచేస్తారనేటువంటి ఒక ఉద్దేశంతో 73, 74 రాజ్యాంగ సవరణను మాత్రమే ఇవాళ అమలు చేస్తున్నారు. కానీ అదే రాజ్యాంగ సవరణ ఏదైతే ఉందో కొత్తగా రాబో కాలం లోపల ఎప్పుడో 20 సంవత్సరాల క్రితము మహిళలకు రాజకీయ రిజర్వేషన్లు 33% ఉండాలని పార్లమెంట్ లో ప్రవేశపెట్టినప్పటికీ ఇప్పటికీ 20 సంవత్సరాలు దాటిపోయినప్పటికీ ఆ యొక్క చట్టాన్ని ఆ యొక్క బిల్లును చింపి పడేసి మూల పడేసారు తప్ప ఇప్పటికైనా కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వము మహిళలకు ఉండేటువంటి రిజర్వేషన్ ఏదైతే ఉందో రాజకీయ రిజర్వేషన్లు 33% కావాలని కోరుకుంటున్నామో ఆ బిల్లును తక్షణమే పార్లమెంట్ లో ప్రవేశపెట్టేసి 33% రిజర్వేషన్ ను మహిళలకు అది పొందేటట్లు చేయవలసినటువంటి బాధ్యత కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం పైన ఉంది అనేటువంటిది చాలా స్పష్టం. అందుకే ఇవాళ 73, 74వ రాజ్యాంగ సవరణను సమర్థిస్తూనే దాన్ని ఆహ్వానిస్తూనే మరి యొక్క మహిళా బిల్లును ఈ యొక్క పార్లమెంట్ లో చట్టసభల్లో మహిళల యొక్క ప్రవేశానికి 33% ఉండాలని చెప్పేసి కోరుకుంటూ మహిళా సాధికారత విధి విధానాలటువంటి అంశం పైన డాక్టర్ సర్వపల్లి రామ రోహిణి గారు వారు ఎంఏ ఎంఫిల్ పిహెచ్డి పొలిటికల్ సైన్స్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ లో చేశారు. వారు అనేక వాలంటరీ ఆర్గనైజేషన్ లో పనిచేశారు. వారు ఈ అంశం మీద అనేకమైనటువంటి వ్యాసాలు కూడా రాయడం జరిగింది. మహిళలకు సంబంధించినటువంటి అనేక విషయాలు వాళ్ళ యొక్క సమస్యల పైన అనేక వ్యాసాలు పుస్తకాలు కూడా రచించడం జరిగింది. వారిని మాట్లాడవలసిందిగా డాక్టర్ రామ రోహిణి గారిని ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాం. మేడం, డాక్టర్ రామ రోహిణి గారు, ప్లీజ్ మేడం.
Welcome, madam. Welcome, madam.
Thank you very much, all of you.
Welcome to this forum, madam. And I welcome all the professors, Professor Vishnu Chaudhary, Professor Ram Reddy, Professor Vijay Lakshmi, Dr. Kavita, Uttara Verma from Times of India, and Dr. Anil Dutt Mishra. I welcome all of you. Yeah, I'll now hand over the mic to Madam Rama Rohini. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James and Srinivas Garu, for very kind words about, and also in many ways you have summarized what I would have started off from. But before I start, I would like to thank Telangana Janavedika, Ramu Garu, convener, Srinivas members Srinivas Garu and James for inviting me onto this forum and asking and to share my thoughts on women's empowerment in India, programs and policies. I would also like to thank my classmate and friend, Mr. Bhamripati Rammurthy, for introducing me to this platform and asking me to come on it. Thank you very much, Rammurthy, and thank you all for all the audience who joined this evening on Sunday and sparing your time to listen to what we have to say. The opinions, my opinions are based on my understanding of the subject as a social development sector professional and a program evaluator. As James has just now told you, I have been working in social development sector since 1992. And since then, I have been in this sector, involved in the sector. So I bring to the audience the efforts of women's development programs and policies in the last 70 years. And to understand women's development, we have to dwell into the history of women's development policies in India. Our policies and programs have been basically devised through what we call a planned economy planning, 5-year plans. You all might be knowing we have 5-year plans till 2017. After 2017, we do not have 5-year plans, but vision documents. The current vision document is India at 75, which will end by next year, 2022. So women's empowerment as always development has been integral and mainstay of development policies. As I just said, it's all our policies and programs have been devised through the our various plans. So given that, I would like to say that it has been, every plan has been very inclusive and has been looking every time women's empowerment issues with a fresh lens. What are the things that they can incorporate, what they can drop, and how it need to be modified. To me, the subject women empowerment, as just now Mr. Srinivas said, it's a very vast but a very dynamic subject. So, and it's always a work in progress. To critically review the programs and policies of the Government of India, various governments, successive governments since our independence, I have devised my talk into 4 parts. First part, I basically briefly tell you about how the programs evolved through development plans. Then I briefly tell you about the Women's Development Ministry of Women and Child Development. There may be a current problem because we are experiencing, in case it gets disconnected, I'll connect again. Okay, so there is just the current has gone. And also that the women, the third chapter is about National Mission for Empowerment of Women, and now what it is called Mahila Shakti Kendras. And the last part is about the critically review of the programs and policies of the Government of India. So I start my discussion with the evolution of development policies in India. There are several provisions under our constitution, particularly the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policies, which by and large cover all the important aspects of women's life. So there is nothing which has not been covered by the Constitution of India with regard to social empowerment, economic empowerment, political empowerment, and justice. All these are there under fundamental rights and directive principles. So what extra was done by the policies? Why is it that we require all those things is what I'm trying to tell you here. And I hope I'm able to convey what the policies have been over the years. When India's India policies have been very much been evolution of both the women empowerment discourses at the national level and at the international levels. So when India became independent, alongside that, globally also many movements for women's empowerment was taking their shape. So from 1951 to up to 1979, which was the first 5-year plans of India, women were subject of a welfare subject, treated as a welfare subject. That is, they need to be taken care of. Taken care of as we take care of old people or as we take care of a poor or a disabled. So women were clubbed with that. There's somebody who needs to be taken care of. They do not have any independent thinking of their own. So that was the idea which perhaps was the need of that hour, those days, but that was the idea, and that is how the women policy started. But in the middle of 1960s, a movement for what I would not like to use the word wave because it will not confuse us now and we are all afraid of the word wave, but it was a second round, what they call a second wave of feminism. I would say second round of movement, women's movement started. So, and it started with a book by a lady called Betty Ferdinand. She, in her book, Feminine Mystique, which was published in 1963, she challenged the idea of what woman has to be. In United States, at that point of time, it was said that her book, she said, there was a thinking there, women could find fulfillment only through child rearing and homemaking. She said it is a false thing, and it is women are victim of false ideas, and by saying so, you are not allowing women to create their own identities. So she challenged this. She said the women would lose their identity if they stick to this particular philosophy. Her movement for civil, social and legal rights led to a very great civil liberty movement in the United States. And it led to the movement was so forceful in the whole of the Western world that the United Nations has to declare 1974 to 1984 as an international decade for women. And 1975, as many of you might be knowing, was International Year for the Women. So when this was happening, even at home, our women's empowerment discourses started, and they said our definition that women need to be a welfare taken care of is not complete. There are many aspects which needs to be looked into, and women are just somebody not to be taken care of. They also have a ability to contribute. Since from 1980 onwards, that is six plan onwards till about 1990s, the whole theory, the paradigm shift happened, and we started saying, okay, no, woman is not a welfare subject, she is a partner in development. So how we can see, and then started the theories and the policies to look around how the woman can be contributed, given some responsibilities, or how she can add value to her own family. And till even then, the notion was, if there is income, if she's economically empowered, everything fall in place. And so with this theory, till 1990s, we were continuing, there was modification to the plan, but one of the most important and significant in that decade was the 1986 new education policy and the National Perspective Plan for Women that developed in 1988. Both in the 1986 document, there was a call for creation of Mahila Samakhyas, small groups for educating women, so that because education is important, and through that they can change their own course of life. And Mahila Samakhyas in many ways are very empowering and a very successful program, which was invoked till 2014. So then these were the two important documents that developed. But in 1990s, what happened again was the what we call a third movement of feminism again started to take shape. The third movement said, okay, the second movement only catered to what the white women have to say, but where are the other women of the other countries are also there. So again, the whole thinking's changed, and there was 1990s to 2000 and to the present. It's an evolution of the programs. Then in 1990s, we had a decade wherein all the women's convention, UN called for many conventions, and first of that was International Conference for Population and Development, which for the first time recognized that women has sexual and reproductive rights, and that people cannot, if she wants, she can exercise those rights. Similarly, we had Convention for Elimination of Crime, violence against women, all kinds of violence and discriminatory practices. So these two conventions and led to what we called a very important platform at the international level called Beijing Platform, Beijing Declaration and Program of Action. Till that day, it's reviewed and we look at the same time when this was happening at the international level, even at the India level, people again, the government also realized, okay, this clamoring that is happening, that women has a sexual rights, we need to look into that. Our plan policies, ninth plan, which for the first time included a chapter, we didn't have, till that time, we were a section of the whole annual reports. But in that period onwards, there was a whole chapter devoted to women and child development, and various programs and policies were came. And we also looked at in the 8th plan itself, then we also set up the Ministry of Women and Child, Department of Women and Child Development, which was later became the Ministry of Women and Child. I'm just briefly touching upon the history, and then I would like to spend more time on the critical review of the policies and programs. So these are the things that shaped in India. To Ministry of Women and Child Development came up in 2006, and the whole narration of women empowerment discourse changed. The women empowerment discourse, the ministry looked at and they said, okay, it is just not income, but there are multiple dimensions to women empowerment. It is just, so what are I would like to share with you a screen. Could you tell you, okay, James, the screen is disabled. Can you please activate it? So anyway, as he, so then the concept of social empowerment, economic empowerment, political empowerment, gender-based response budgeting, gender-based violence, all was started to look at, because they realize it is just not income that is important for women, but women happiness at political level, economic level, personal level, against violences that she faces at home or in society needs also to be addressed. Just a sec, I'm just sharing my screen with you all.
No, you can share them. You can share.
Yeah,
Use
now
take
it's
this.
working, yeah. Just a sec. So, and the ministry, can you see my screen now?
No, we don't. No, it is not visible, ma'am.
No, I am unable to still share my screen. Okay, now can you see me now? Can you see the screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Is the screen
Yeah, yeah.
visible?
It is visible. It is visible.
So then they realized that, okay, there are all these dimensions and that women needs to be taken care of every level. So the Ministry of Women and Child, it was decided, will act as a nodal agency, and it will only concentrate on few of the aspects. The rest of the aspects would be shared by what we call as a convergence model. So presently, the Ministry of Finance takes care of some of the financial and economic empowerment programs. Ministry of Tribal Welfare also does programs for women and child. Ministry of Micro and Small Enterprises called MSMEs. Ministry of Health, all have started their own programs, and it is only rooted and done through the Ministry of Women and Child Development. I'll just switch off my screen also. I just stop this screen sharing for a while. So the ministry started looking at it from a different perspective. And in 2006, we set up an independent ministry under which all the programs have been converged. Even then, the ministry cannot on its own do anything. So ministry has a what we call vehicles for empowerment. What are the modes in which they can, give that, ensure that each and every activity, each and every program reaches to the last woman staying in any part of the village of India. So that is where we have what we call SHGs. If you can see my screen again, I don't know whether you can see my screen. Can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen now? Is the screen visible?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So the SHGs, we have more than 7 crore SHGs in India, all parts of India, all states of India. There are many SHGs. SHGs is the main vehicle for empowering women. And as I said earlier, because therefore, all ministries in India, whether it is Ministry of Rural Development, Ministry of Finance, all of them have SHGs, or they use SHG as a model to take women empowerment program down to the lowest levels in the country. You people, many of might have heard about the Bank Sakhi program, DAY, National Rural Livelihood Missions. All the SHGs currently come under are there under the National Rural Livelihood Missions, because earlier itself it was thought that livelihood or the economics was most important. So when we decided that, it was decided way back in 1982 that a program for women collective would be started, and they actually start. Many of you might have heard about DWRCA program, DWRCA, Development of Women and Child in Rural Areas. That was called DWRCA. In Andhra and Telangana, you have many DWRCA groups. So these were there for the development of women empowerment. This is the vehicles that they thought would lead women to the empowerment. But by the 12th, but as I said, when the global movement kept changing, what Beijing Declaration brought to the fore was women and child are just not a component. There is something called gender. So gender is just not woman and child, but it includes man, woman, and child. And if you're comparing development of women, you need to compare women vis-a-vis the men. So that is how the concept of gender evolved. So even in our policy, we changed it. We said, okay, it's not anymore woman and child. We did away with the woman and child in the planning, and we said now onwards it will be gender, so that all the programs, all the policies that are done, it is done for women, man, and child together. And then we will start looking at and comparing where they stand, how is it the gender performing. And 12th plan policy again changed the narrative and put it in record, saying that women needs to have multiple dimensions. So the ministry's approach should also be multiple dimension, and it should not be a single dimension. You cannot say, okay, she has income, so she's fine, she's rich. No, and she's okay, she's economical, she's empowered. No, they said income is only one part of our empowerment. She might be rich, but she may not be politically empowered. She may not be socially empowered to take charge of her lives. So the whole dimension, the whole narrative, it changed again. So and also it was decided that we would need as Srinivas Garu already said, 73rd and 74th Amendment Act that gave 33% reservation for women in municipal and local bodies elections. So we have where in Panchayat election and all women's reservations. Then also it was decided that budgetary allocation, 30% of the budget of each ministry should be allocated for women sector programs. With all these programs and policies in place, we developed a ministry we had set up a ministry for women and child development. It started in 2006, but till now we have, with each plan, with each ministry kept expanding. And what has been the approach of ministry? Initially thought, as I said earlier also, women empowerment is social, economic, political, legal empowerment, all these things. But then they again revised. They said they again divided into three major components and three major components of what we call is the approach to ministry. And that is, if you can see my screen, this is social empowerment. What is a social empowerment? The ministry is creating and enabling empowerment through adopting various policies and programs for development. In the social empowerment section, mainly there are two programs, that is health and education. For health, we have many programs, but under the Ministry of Women and Child, only health program that is listed is Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. Earlier it was called Indira Gandhi's Matru Sahyog Yojana. As I go, I can tell you later what is the minor difference we have brought to this. Then we have economic empowerment. We ensure provision of training, employment, income generation activities with both forward and backward linkages. So when we say, okay, training, over the years, it's just not now that we have Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. No, the skill building exercise had started way back. We had programs like Sitara, we had programs like TRISM. TRISM was Tribal Youth Employment Training Program, where women also 40% in all the programs, whether it was Sitara, whether it was TRISM, there were some other programs, all these programs had reservation for training of 40% of component for women. Similarly, now we have MSME, what is called Ministry for Micro and Small Micro Enterprises. Under that, we have Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, which is actually giving loans for up to 10 lakh rupees for women who want to start up their own enterprise under the MSME program. Then currently what is in vogue is social enterprises, Bank Sakhi program, which is actually a Bank Sakhi program is basically trying to take banking to the woman at her doorstep. And that is also comes as a part of financial inclusion, because financial inclusion, there's a notion that if women have financially included, they will be economically empowered. And then we also are looking at digital literacy under economic empowerment. Why? Because India is on for a digital, now we all might have heard about digital India. It's about faceless, paperless, cashless India. We are giving it a digital push. Digitization has its advantages, but there are certain things which I'll discuss later as we go. Then we come as a gender justice, which is the most important program. We talk about social protection. The gender justice program looks at providing social protection to women who are victims of various kinds of harassment, abuses, and violence. And through that, they are providing for legal counseling, rehabilitation, everything happens under gender justice program. And also they've added few more components to it. Women who comes for a rehabilitation here, they're also trying to look at how she could be economically rehabilitated, what are the legal counseling available, if also whether she can, how she can increase her participation in various other activities. So when the ministry started working, and for the first time every plan year, we have what we called a working group on women empowerment and for women, working group on women plans. So this particular group tells you us what is the status of women in India vis-a-vis the various empowerment programs and what needs to be done. Based on all this, in 2011, we set up what we called a national mission for empowerment of women. 2010 and 2011, we had set up this, what the national mission for empowerment of women, which at that particular point of time were called Purna Shakti Kendras. They were one-stop umbrella program, which they thought would give, they don't have to run around everywhere to get there themselves to be heard and all. They brought all the activities that they thought are important for women under one umbrella, and all the programs and policies were being devised, were rooted through that, and to reach to the lowest levels of our society, women, whether it was economically poor, geographically distant, or in whatever economic or social ladder she was and how far ever she was, it was being done through SHGs. I must tell you, even in SHGs, there are two kinds of SHGs. One is a general SHG, and there are one special project SHGs. The SHG special project SHGs ensure that women from tribal, Dalit, and all these communities get the benefits of the program. So there are special SHGs for the government, which the government has created to empower women. The National Empowerment for Women was started in 2011, and it was before actually it could take off, or we can say it had completed what we call a project cycle in social development sector. We say any project minimum has to run for 5 years, but before it could actually complete it 5 years, or we can understand what was the gains that we are making through it and what is the needs to be done. In 2017, this program was brought under what the then finance minister from the floor of the parliament during the budget session, late Mr. Arun Jaitley, said that we are bringing it under what they called a rechristened and renamed and redesigned Mahila Shakti Kendras. So Mahila Shakti Kendras, because the whole idea was what the present government's narrative is, or what the present government believes they want to do, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So they thought Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas can happen only when this National Mission for Empowerment of Women is brought and is given a new look and a new design, and they called it Mahila Shakti Kendras. Today, and this pilot, they started a pilot run of it, which ended in 2019. 2017 to 2019, it was set up and piloted in many states, including Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. In Andhra Pradesh, there were many districts. One of the districts which I remember clearly is Krishna district. So they did these programs, and but as of now, this Mahila Shakti Kendras, there are two things. They said either it could be located in Gram Panchayats or it could be located in ICDS centers, Anganwadis. Why Anganwadi was chosen? Because women come there, so it will be easy for us to convey what is required to be done, what are the programs for you, what needs to be, where you can access, how, why, when, everything could be told to them because women come to Anganwadi centers. So given that, this whole Mahila Shakti Kendras was started. But as of now, what the only thing that Mahila Shakti Kendras, this thing is that they focus on social protection more than on other aspects, because as said, it's under Ministry of Ministry of Women and Child Development. The focus of the entire Ministry of Women and Child Development is right now on social justice, gender justice, or social protection of women. So when they are saying it is just a social, I'll just share with you that slide also. Okay, so they say it's just that social justice, and all the programs that are there is a cross-cutting program that is everywhere, whether it is this is safety and protection program. These programs are listed on the Women and Child Empowerment website. If you go on the schemes, you will get to see these. So Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Swadhar Greh, one-stop center, what you call Disha centers in Andhra Pradesh, Ujjwala, women hostel, working women hostels, women helpline, they're all for safety and protection of women. As you all might be knowing, there's a dedicated women helpline center, 1091. If any one woman is in distress, she can call this number, and it is said the help would reach to her in minutes. In fact, we also have a new Ministry of Home Affairs helpline, 112. It is an integrated service which anybody can download on their app mobile. It will provide you health, resources, emergency, everything is there. So the Ministry of Women and Child right now is focusing on social protection more, maybe because when it started off in 2000, this particular government, when they started off in 2014, we had a very major event happen in India, that was Nirbhaya case, that actually tarnished India's image world over, that India is not safe for women. So maybe in that background, the entire focus of the Ministry of Women and Child Development is on social protection of women and child. And then they think if this is done, perhaps everything will fall in place. And the other programs, as I said, economic empowerment, political empowerment, or other social empowerment programs, health and education, is rooted through other ministries. This basically is how the policies and the programs of the Ministry of Women and Child have been devised and been there over the years. So when we say we are doing very well, so what has these programs and policies led us to? Where do we stand today? When we say, okay, India as of now is a very, as we all know, is a very big tech giant. Technologically, we are one of the advanced countries. We also have a very good trying to position ourselves in a geopolitical phase as a power which can be heard at very international forums and all. And also that within, and we have been overall India communication to the world is, yeah, we are developing economy, we are an emerging economy, we have a space and we need a space, and we are growing, and we are there for you. You can count on us, we are a technology giant. We are planned up positioning ourselves, and we all know how in a geopolitical scenarios. But what is it? Has it all translated? 70 years we have invested in women's empowerment and gender programs. We have a lot of policies, a lot of money goes into all the programs that the government of India is doing, it costs a lot of the exchequer of India. But how has it really translated it onto into the gender empowerment? There are various indicators, there are indexes which actually tell where India is with regard to the gender. They are Human Development Report, which comes out every year, Human Development Index, what we call. Then we have Gender Inequity Index that actually tells the world, okay, what is the inequality status in India? Inequity status in India. There's a difference between equality and equity. Equality we are granted by the Constitution. We have every right everywhere to speak. And then we also have equity. Equity means providing opportunity, the same opportunity to all. Then we have so having said, where are we with regard to these indicators, indexes, global gender index? Actually, I trying to conclude what I am saying. So on these indexes, I would like to say in past 70 years, when we have done so much of progress and all, when it comes to human, as I said, Human Development Index, Gender Inequity Index, Gender Development Index, Gender Gap Index, these are the vital indicators on which India is measured with regard to gender or women's empowerment. In India is presently position 131 in Human Development Index. Out of 189 countries, we are at 131 position. And Gender Inequity Index 2020, out of 153, we are at 123rd rank. And when it comes to Gender Development Index, we are actually on, they are into 5 groups, group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Group 5 is last. India is in the last group 5 as of 2020 Gender Development Index. Then comes based on all this, there is what we call Gender Global Index. On that, India in 2020 was 114. But the latest Gender Global Index that was released recently in 2021, India has fallen 28 places, and today out of 156 countries, we are ranked at 140. So given this, and still we say in South Asia, we are a big country. But in terms of these things, in terms of Human Development Index, India, among the South Asian countries that we all know who are neighboring countries are, India is behind. We are behind in terms of human index, behind Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is ranked 72 in the world. Maldives is ranked 95 in the world. Bhutan is ranked 129 in the world. And we in India, in the SAARC nation, we are at 4th with 131 points. Then it comes on Gender Inequity Index. Again, Sri Lanka is positioned at 90, Bhutan at 99, Nepal is 110, and we are ranked at 123. Yes, but we are a big nation. And similarly, when it comes to Gender Development Index, which I said it is in 5 groups, India is placed in group 5 along with SAARC countries of Nepal, Afghanistan and Pakistan. We, India, Afghanistan and Pakistan are in group 5, which shows the Gender Development Index. The gender development in India is more than 10% difference. So all those countries which are higher are put there. India is in group 5, which is the lowest. Similarly, when it comes to Gender Global, as I said, Gender Global Index, we have fallen to that place. Again, in that index also, we have behind Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and all these countries. When it comes to, we are again an emerging country and we are emerging economy. That's why we are clubbed with BRICS nation, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They are considered as emerging economies. In comparison to BRICS nations also, we are always at the bottom. I would like to share with you for 2 minutes these graphs, which you can see and understand. This is for Human Development Index. You can see Afghanistan has got 169, Bangladesh 133, Bhutan 129, India 131, 95. This is
You have not shared your screen, ma'am.
Oh, sorry. I would like to share. I'll share. Sorry. So can you see my screen now? Is it visible, my screen?
It is. It is.
So if you can see the screen, these are the indicators what is taken: long and healthy life, knowledge, and a decent standard of living. Those are the direction for Human Development Index. And on these, India, this is a comparison. If you can see, SAARC and BRIC nation. This is where we are. Above us is Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Bhutan. So India is behind them in this index as well. And there's no comparison when it comes to BRICS nation. BRICS are too far ahead of us. Similarly, when we look at the gender inequality index, again, I forgot to put the Maldives number, but India is behind Sri Lanka and Bhutan. You know the kind of geographical country sizes they are, and everything we know, we need not say, but this is where we are. This is despite the policies that we have been following for over the years. Similarly, when it comes to Gender Development Index, as I said, we are in group 5, along with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Pakistan is 5, Sri Lanka is 2, I've misplaced it, put it there, but Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, they are way ahead of income when it comes to Gender Development Index. And all the other nations, this is the BRIC nations, all of them are in, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm able not to shift the screen. They are in, as you can see, Brazil, China, Russia, South Africa, they are in group 1, which means the difference in that when compared to same, given everything same for man and women, where are the percentage difference? So in all these countries, it is less than 2.5%. When it's group 1 is less than 2.5%. Group 2 means less than 5%. Anything between 2.5 to 2.5% is group 2. We are more than 10%. That's why we are in group 5, and which is the last group. So what is it that is, we have so many programs and policies. This is what is in gender, but at the technology front or in the the Global Innovation Index, which was released recently, that said India for the first time is ranked 48. That means we have broken into top 50 when it comes to innovation and all those things, which is part of the economy, wherein also women is contributing. But the index shows on those parameters, India is in top 50. So what is it is stopping us from achieving these levels or breaking into top nation on the gender front? Has our policies failed us? Has the program failed us? Or the implementation is lacking? Or is it the both that Annie actually has stopped performing? This is what I'm trying to look at in this section. When we say, okay, so what is it that it is only in the past few years, I said 1990s, 9th plan onwards, we started focusing on women empowerment in a more specialized or more compartmentalized way. Okay, there's a social empowerment, there's this, and under that only we are putting all our programs and policies, programs basically. And as I said earlier also, one of the biggest things is social empowerment. So when we talk of social empowerment, there are 3 things included in it. One is social protection, which is, stopping harm to women, and then health and education. I'm going to discuss about two policies, two programs. These two programs, basically because it is listed in Ministry of Women and Child Development. Also, believe me, these are not the only two programs that is happening for women and child in this sphere, health and education sphere. There are many programs. But since Ministry of Women and Child is responsible for women empowerment, and these two programs are listed there, I'm going to look at these programs, how effective they have been. One program, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. It is a very, everybody knows about it. As you know, everybody knows Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. It is a program, but this program is a social protection program. Why? Because we are trying to arrest the child sex ratio. As you know, there are many states, there are child sex ratio is adverse. That is per 1,000 male live births of male, what is the female number of females that we have. So the government of India has done a lot of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao is an awareness generation program. Within that, there are many other programs which help in protection or birth of a girl child. One of that is called Janani Suraksha Yojana, where we say, okay, that is also for improving the institutional deliveries and stopping the child being born at home, because that would also help in women not dying. So it will also bring down our infant mortality as well as maternal mortality. So we have what we call Janani Suraksha Yojana. When a woman goes to hospital to give birth, then she is given some money for that. And today, after so many years of practicing this particular program and the narrative of the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, for the first time, the projections have come out that India will have in 2036 more female population. Our sex ratio is going to increase by 1.9%, which will, right now we are at 943. By 2036, it will be 957. And experts feel it is a step on gender equity. Similarly, but what about the second part, the Beti Padhao part? So Beti Padhao part is actually the various educational statistics shows there is an increase in primary level education and at the secondary level. But when it comes to higher secondary level, the women are still dropping out. So what is it that stops, where we have a lot of conditional cash transfer programs for women in India? So if women is attended, we had Bhagya Lakshmi Yojana, Ladli Yojana. Right now you have Amma Odi in Andhra Pradesh. We also have what is called Kanya Shri Prakalap in West Bengal, which is very popular and which was a case study at the UN agencies for how it led to women coming to schools and how it improved it. But when it comes to higher education, women graph, as it's traditionally, it falls like this, and it's actually parallel to what we call x-axis. It actually comes down. It is so that what it means is the conditional cash transfer programs which are there are not working at the higher level education. I feel the government should know there's much more than doing just giving CCT, just more than giving them cash or doling out physical project, physical incentives. What is required, because at many forums, the girls have said they have safety and security issues in going to school. There are transport issues. Okay, transportation issues are being solved by many people by giving cycles and all. But there are other programs that doesn't help women reach the school because she has a lot of issues at home. She has safety and security issues, which the programs are not addressing. So we need to look at how we can address the Beti Padhao part of it. And the narrative on National Girls' Day, that is on January 24th, would be better. Just not sharing girls' photographs across social media that we love our daughters. Please also share how you are enriching their life by removing the obstacles for her going to school. Because many girls have told that because of these problems, they are forced to drop out and enter into matrimony. So that is something the government should look at. Also, when it comes to empowerment, we say it's financial empowerment. Financial inclusion is seen as a major empowerment program. And we have everything through DBT, direct benefit transfers, direct back-to-back transfers. All money beneficiaries are getting their money into their bank account, which was opened through Jan Dhan Yojanas. And last year, Madam Prime Minister, Finance Minister also used the Jan Dhan accounts to transfer the money. But on ground, women do not feel economically empowered because of that. Why? Because many of them are digitally and financially illiterate. I would like to tell you 2 examples of this. In one of the districts of Tamil Nadu, where I had gone and I was checking, how is it functioning? And I said, what do you prefer? Do you prefer? I thought, okay, she would say, I'm very happy with this digital transaction. She said, I'm not at all happy. I said, why? What makes you so unhappy? You're getting cash immediately. She said, who wants that cash? That cash is of no use for me. I said, why? She said, the bank ATM is 8 kilometers away from my house. And I have to take a transport. I cannot go. I give back digital card, my debit card and the PIN number to my husband. What I get back in return is only the debit card. The money is not there for me. If you give me cash, I can keep aside some money for me. Here, I'm not keeping aside. Similarly, in some other program, the money was transferred to her. It was reflected in her bank accounts, but she did not, in her passbook, she did not know that money had come and she had withdrawn and spent because she did not know how to read the passbooks. So the people are saying this doesn't help for us. So similarly, when we go to gender justice program, I do not understand what is the policy with regard to, we have a lot of social protection program, as I said, thanks to Nirbhaya. Of course, unfortunately, she died, but she actually changed a lot of things for women in India. That one thing is setting up fast track courts, and giving more teeth to the laws. But the law can only bite and act as a deterrent if the fast court actually dispel the cases on a very fast rollout, which is not happening. We know that there is a delay. So fast track is really not fast. But yes, I heard, and in Andhra, the Disha Chattam, and on the ground also, people say in Andhra, it is acting as a deterrent, and we are very happy. So that is there. But overall, in other parts of India, law needs to be a little more fast on that aspect. When it comes to, as I said, also when we talk of political empowerment, I have not understood what the civil or, because there's no narrative anywhere when we saw talk of civil empowerment and what is it called, the cultural empowerment. No narrative, nothing is, but it's described under gender justice, civil and cultural empowerment. What do we mean by it? Nowhere, no articles, nothing, or even on ground, I've not understood ever. Then it comes to political empowerment. Yes, today there are 2 parts to political empowerment. One is participation in electoral process, another is participation in parliamentary process. There are 2 different things. But right now, everybody is focused on electoral participation of women. They say, okay, women is a separate group. We need to have more programs for her. We need to have something special for her, manifestos for her. And they are no longer a silent voter, but they are being wooed. They are being concentrated upon, and we have seen in the elections after elections, the messaging and the manifestos have something special for women, be it Bihar, be it West Bengal, be it any other place. Today, women is seen as a good, substantial vote bank, and for them, they need to have policies in place. But when it comes to political participation, very sorry to say, we have not implemented. We are still waiting at the reservation, women's reservation bit at the parliament, which is long pending to be passed, which is even now is not seeing its day or light of the day. But right now, we only have 14% women there in the parliament. Even among them, when you look at and analyze the parliament data, attendance data, whether they are participating in debates or they are participating in questions and answer session, even there, the women participation, the women MPs, they are not raising any questions, or they are raising very few questions when it comes to women's sectors. So unless our women representative talk about us and ask for that, we cannot change anything. Nothing will happen if they don't rise for that. The women they represent, if they cannot stand for them, their participation is just a mere participation of attending. So we expect more for them from them. In the end, I would just like to say, when we are going forward, there are two things that Government of India that needs to really look at it. One is increasing the gender responsive budgeting. We all know, and in the 9th plan, it was said 30% allocation. Until now, even today, I evaluated looked at the last union budget figures. Spending is only 1% that you can see. It's less than 1%. This is from 2008 to 2009. And the highest we had was in, I think, 2010-11, when it was 0.87%, 2009-10. Thereafter, it's just been around less than 1%. Even then, it's very less. So, and also, I would think the Ministry of Women and Child Development is restructuring. They have to redesign itself and think how equitable empowerment ecosystem they can create so that it leads to gender equality and development and helps us climb the gender indexes ladder and not remain at the bottom of it. Because women of India, we have a lot of potential, we have everything there. It's just that the policies, program and implementation all together, I feel have failed us. That is what I wanted to talk to you. That is what it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
I'm open for any questions. I can respond in Telugu, English, and Hindi. So these are the three.
Okay, madam. Thank you. Thank you. Sumarga. వారు చెప్పడం అనేటువంటి జరిగింది. ప్రధానంగా 70 సంవత్సరాల భారత స్వతంత్ర దేశంలో మహిళలకు సంబంధించినటువంటి పాలసీస్ ఎట్లా ఉన్నాయి ఏంటి అనేటువంటి విషయాన్ని చాలా అనేటువంటిది కూడా వారు తెలియజెప్పడం అనేటువంటిది జరిగింది. అదేవిధంగా సార్క్ అండ్ బ్రిక్స్ ఆ దేశాలలో భారతదేశం యొక్క మహిళా సాధికారత సంబంధించినటువంటి స్థానాల గురించి చాలా స్పష్టంగా డాక్టర్ రోహిణి గారు చాలా స్పష్టంగా తెలియజెప్పారు. వారికి మా తెలంగాణ జనవేదిక తరఫున ప్రత్యేకమైనటువంటి ధన్యవాదాలు మేడం. ఇప్పుడు మిత్రులు ఎవరైనా ప్రొఫెసర్ రామరెడ్డి గారు సార్, ప్రొఫెసర్ రామరెడ్డి గారు,
Please unmute yourself and ask the questions. Please unmute yourself and ask the questions.
ఆయన అడుగుతున్నాడు క్వశ్చన్ మేడం.
Good evening to everybody. I am Mr. Jaypal from Hyderabad. I heard entire the speech of Rama Rohini, but here she has explained about the 70 years of plans, 5-year plans, and Prajan Niti Aayog and gender disparity, etc. But as a social scientist in India, we have to consider the taboos and the Indian structure. The anthropologists are not made part of the planning in the women development. And everybody says we are having 50% of the women, but the budgetary allocation, only one department, how it can achieve the goal. So if all anthropologists and social scientists form a working group on this. They can suggest good plans and future development plans, especially for the women.
You want me to respond to that? Yes, I agree that we need resources. Any program or implementation or design, everything depends upon the resources. And if we continue to give only 1% of what we thought, we'll give 30% or only 1%, nothing, not much can be. Even this, whatever little we have achieved is good, but it is not great. Given that India has so much of potential and women of India have so much of potential, I must also bring to your notice that a lot of activities, a lot of this achievement is also through the NGOs that work in this sector. Government alone is not doing it. It is the women, the number of NGOs that work in India through their programs, they support, they are changing the, they're helping the government in changing the indexes, numbers and all. A lot of contribution that is going through an NGOs, even in the social protection sphere, a lot of things that how there are a lot of advocacy happening, what we need to do, especially with regard to social protection, with regard to health. But yes, 1% allocation is not good enough.
Hello.
There are people, there are think tanks that are working on it, but more needs to be done, and the government needs, if possible, needs to involve people from social, lot of people from social development sector, especially the NGOs who are working on grassroots levels, because they are the one who are connected to the people. They can tell us as to what needs to be done, how effectively it can be done. So whether it's, and I think education for girls in higher secondary is something that we really need to look at, because we cannot afford the girls to drop out like this. And our workforce participation, we have said by 2022 will be 30%. That is next year. Today we are at 20.7%. The way the girls are dropping out without completing education, how do you think we can increase the workforce participation? Because even for skill development, we need education. If the girls are not even completing schooling, it's a real question that we have to look at and reflect.
Yeah. Ramurthy, you have unmuted. You want to ask anything?
Nothing specific, Ramu. Nothing specific.
Sir, Vishnu sir. Professor Vishnu sir. You want to ask anything, sir?
No.
Thanks. Thank
కొన్ని అన్మ్యూట్ లో పెట్టండి సార్, కొందరు వాయిస్ వేస్ట్ వస్తుంది.
Sudhakar sir.
Yeah. Hello. Yes, I'm there. Hello. Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, I have no queries or questions to be asked. Thank you, Madam Rama Rohini Sarvapalli. It is more of an academic discourse she has presented, and the entire picture of women empowerment within a limited period of about an hour or so. And there are certain questions that certain issues that have to be attended in spite of the effort that are being made by the governments, all the successive governments since independence, because a lot of things that are to be addressed are including that of political, social and economic empowerment. Still, as Rama Rohini Madam was telling, that our stand is at the international level, our stand is something much below than any of our countries which are developing in nature. And of course, other most important aspect which may definitely contribute is already the Constitution 73rd and 74th Amendment has empowered women to the extent of 33% reservation, but at the same time, in many states, it has even touched 50% also. It is a welcome feature. But insofar as the representation in the state legislatures and the parliament, the sincerity of the political parties are to be questioned. In spite of lot of efforts, still the laudable purpose of providing reservation for equal and identical representation of women has not been taken care of. If that particular aspect has been addressed by way of suitable amendment to the constitution, probably the real women empowerment can be achieved. That is what is my opinion. Thank you very much.
May I just respond to Dr. Sudhakar? Dr. Sudhakar, you rightly pointed out.
Yes, ma'am.
But the other, again, one thing is, even today, when we have, there's nothing for women as political empowerment, as you're rightly saying. 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts are given, and many women are today sarpanch. Do you really think they are sarpanch or sarpanch patis? They are only there because their husband wants them to be there. Are they allowed to use their brains? Are they allowed to exercise their powers? Are they, because there are so many issues, and and they have also been called sarpanch patis, though they are sarpanches. They have every right, but they are more of sarpanch pati. She is not able to exercise maybe perhaps what she wants to do. Similarly, when you are rightly pointing out, political parties, even where the woman is the head of the party or the founder of party, where are the women giving the leadership roles?
No, madam, when women empowerment is on the priority, when women, the sarpanch parties are coming up, okay, to some extent we can tolerate because it's a matter of transitionary period. At least maybe we have been, and the people like you have been sensitizing women to actively participate in the local self-governments as well. And maybe it is a question of about 20-25 years, probably in the shortest period, definitely the women, at least in the local level, will definitely independently operate. But that should not be hindrance. And we are seeing at least a limited women in parliament. We could see as how effective they are representing and how effective they are canvassing the causes of their state or the women issues. So once appropriate opportunity has been given to women, definitely there is every possibility that they can demonstrate their efficiency and draw the attention of not only the state but the world also. Probably I am of a strong opinion that in the nearest future, probably if the women activists happen to sensitize the government and influence the government and ask the government for expansion of more and more schemes. Already you have been telling that there are a lot of schemes are there. And apart from these schemes, since I hail from the legal fraternity, what I think is that enactment of a law will definitely serve the purpose. Schemes are such that they are today here and tomorrow they may disappear. But once it has been made as a law, then definitely women empowerment may be more guaranteed. That is what is my considered opinion. Thank you.
But the Constitution also guarantees us so many things, sir.
No.
So anyway, that is next. Anybody else wants to ask?
Sir, if you permit, I would like to ask a question.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Go ahead, madam. Go ahead.
My name is Professor Nalini Juneja.
Yeah, ma'am.
I'm from the field of education. I was on the Andhra Pradesh expert group on education. So I'm looking with great interest. You see, I was recently introduced to this forum, and I really enjoyed this talk. And as the previous speaker just said, it is a very nice academic discussion. Dr. Rama brought us up to date, on how the thinking of the ministry and the thinking behind our policies has changed. But sir, as an educated and sort of financially empowered woman myself, I really feel that unless the thinking changes within our families, within the men, within the ego, the gender perspective, as we went, earlier from the women perspective to the gender perspective, which is the relative difference within homes, within this thing, very, very little will actually change on the ground. I don't know what is Dr. Rama, what she would like to comment. I mean, I'm just making an observation. Perhaps Dr. Rama may have seen some things during her field work. Are the women from rural communities or maybe tribal communities where there is greater equality among men and women, are they different? Perhaps I would like her to comment. Thank you.
Firstly, Dr. Thank you for joining in, Dr. Juneja, and for your question. You're very right. And I think I just now in my conclusion, and I've said, I would like to look at the restructuring of the Ministry of Women and Child, wherein more equitable, empowering ecosystem is created. With regard to my observations on field, equality within the families, yes, I would say there is a positive change. Perhaps it is not as we would like. People sitting in Delhi, we are more empowered, both of us being in this field. But yes, there is a positive change. When I started in 1990s going to villages in India, women would not even come out and talk. I had to even taking a team, asking them to get interviewed, they would not even turn out. Today that has changed. If somebody asks, they're willing to come out. They're more equitable when they say, we know when to talk. We will handle our man. Earlier it was not like that. Today they know, and they themselves are demanding. As I said, when I was looking at the DBT schemes, they are saying, you have said you have empowered us, but where is the empowerment? It is the man when he withdraws money from the account. It takes away all the money. Just because the ATM is 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers, I'm not able to go. I am educated. I know how to operate my bank account, or I know how to withdraw money from ATM. Why should I give it to him? Why can't the bank you can establish micro ATMs or more, something which is much more easier for women. That is how the whole narrative of Bank Sakhi started in India, wherein all SHG women today, it's a social enterprise. She operates as a bank's correspondent, as a local bank. They go and withdraw money. Secondly, today they know when it comes to health, how to seek, when to go to doctor. Today she decides whether she wants to go to a hospital to get admitted, deliver a child at home. No woman today in India, in rural areas, anywhere wants deliveries at home. They want to go to hospital. Even though 1,500 rupees, they said even you don't give it. Many women are delivering children at private hospital. That money comes to you only when you deliver at a government facility. So there are women who are taking decisions. Yes, it is not as we would like. More needs to be done, but there is a positive change. We are pushing for the change a little fast. But 25 years, as Dr. Sudhakar was saying, another 20, 25 years, that's too long period. We need to look at much faster pace of development.
Professor Chaudhary, sir.
Pritisha, you want to stop? You want to ask anything, Priti?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, everyone. So basically, I don't have a question. I have a different opinion. Before I go forward, I would like to take permission. Am I allowed to present some opinion, or is it just a question that I have to ask?
I think you can present an opinion, definitely. It is a forum where ideas need to be exchanged. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, being a woman, I have a different opinion in this concept of women empowerment. I feel that the whole concept of women empowerment is a hoax, because when you're talking about women empowerment, it's the whole generation. Like, it's not just one generation, 2 to 3 generations are working on women empowerment. But if you see the core of this concept, it's the men who has to be empowered, not the women. Because women never wanted to be subjugated. Women never want to be submissive to anyone, but it's the men who decide what policies to be made, what laws should be there for the women. How many women represents in policy making or in law making when it is about the women? And ma'am, you mentioned that there were some Nobel Prizes where the women were excluded and the male counterparts, they were given the awards. It was never the women who said that you exclude me and then you say that you need empowerment. It's always the men. So why don't we work on men empowerment, empowering the men on how to adjust with the empowered women? That is my opinion.
Pritisha,
Thank you.
Yeah, very good observation, I would say. But you must know that's why we are today, all the programs, irrespective what it is just not women is focused, but it is just not women. It is her ecosystem, her ecological system where she is living, where she survives. What is it? So when for example, I'll tell you the biggest change that the Government of India program has in health sector, or even right now happening in education sector. It is what when we called of reproductive, earlier it was called maternal and child health. Then they said, no, it is not about maternal. It's not only women health. Women health depends on men. Then the sensitization of men started. It is now it is called reproductive and child health. And every counseling, wherever antenatal checkup happens, it has been made sure people are trying, they try their best that man comes and takes equal participation in the development of the child, in the health of the pregnant woman. It is man is being involved. Men are also being empowered. But when it comes to women have been fast paced and they have moved far much faster. Men in India still are somewhere more in the tradition mode. It is also women's responsibility to change our own sons. We need to change the orientation at home, as Dr. Juneja was asking, what is at home? And you are also asking, if I have a son and a daughter, I need to tell both of them these two chores you both have to do. It is not that so the narrative starts at home. Home is the first level of schooling. Similarly, when it comes to education, I must tell you all education programs, especially they are at the ICDS or Anganwadi Center where they have early childhood education and development. They ensure that father is also present. Father is also asked to come and take participation in child's development, whether it's a girl or a boy. So those things are happening. Maybe I would not say the word hoax, women empowerment. Women were already empowered, were ever empowered, and will remain empowered. It is just that over a period of time, there's one Hindi poem, I don't know, by Subhadra Kumari Chauhan, wherein she compares the life of a girl with that of a bird in a cage. And then in the end, she says, because she has the ability to fly high and take care of herself, don't clip her wings. Maybe you have heard, hum panchi unmukt gagan ke pinjar band na reh payenge. So she's telling, so that is what it is. Don't clip off wings. Just allow us to fun. I also, many times I say, there's a kahavat in Hindi. In Telugu, we would say it's a samita. They would say, padhoge, likhoge, banoge nawab, kheloge, koodoge, banoge kharab. लड़कियां पढ़ने को तैयार है. They have proved they can study, they can rise in life. They have also shown if they are good athletes, they can win medals for India. ना पढ़ने देते हो, ना खेलने देते हो, what will they do? So who needs to change? We are pushing our boundaries. The men also need to understand. Of course, India is changing. We have the most recent example is in armed forces, they're planning for a permanent commission for women. So things are happening, but at a pace that perhaps you and I do not like. We want a faster pace, but yes, it is changing, but it will take more time.
And
James,
ma'am,
you have
one more-
something?
Yeah, I have.
sir, one more question I want to ask.
Yeah.
Sir, ma'am, this concept of Pradhan Pati concept, which is not just in North India, but I guess it is everywhere in India. How to cope up with this condition?
I think it's a woman who is at power. She first has to decide that she has to believe. She had the ability. That is why she is a Pradhan of the Gaon. And it is her belief that she has to change in her mind. And then perhaps, the first thing is you change yourself. Think that you are empowered and you can do it. So then perhaps I think it is, once you have the power, you are sitting, actually I read a phrase somewhere that said, the power of the seat does not, the size of the seat does not tell the power of the person who is occupying it. She might be sitting on a small chair, but she has the ability, the pen is her sword, and she has the, but then firstly, I have to believe I'm worthy of it. First, I have to, it is a gift from me and I have to be indebted to that person. No, I do not agree to that. I think unless I believe I can do it, I'm here because of what I am, what are virtues and qualities I'm here for that. Till that narrative changes, the Pradhanpati would always be very happy with women only being small, whatever science you want to put it. That's my own perception.
Thank you, ma'am.
James.
Yeah, ma'am, I just have a comment actually, and thank you very much for a very comprehensive analysis about the programs, about what is happening, about the empowerment scenario, women empowerment scenario in the entire country. And as you have rightly said, now maybe we are a little impatient about the pace of it, and which is again which is right. But again, things are happening, and they are slowly. We can see the change, but it has to be a little more faster. And so we would all, and we are very thankful that we have a person of your expertise working on these areas. And we also urge you to make some more policies which we could which would speed up the pace of the programs. And also I'd like to again just enlighten or inform our the attendees that we are not an academic forum. We are a forum we are bringing in experts from various fields to enlighten the common man. And so we are also, in an attempt to in some ways trying to do what the universities are unable to do. And so we are again very thankful, ma'am, Rohini ma'am, that you have enlightened so much, given us so much information on these topics. It is good to know. And again, as it is always, again, also agree on as one of the attendees has been saying that the man should also be educated on some of these on these issues, on empowerment issues, especially about that he doesn't that his ego does not need to get burst. And that the world is progressing. We all also as a society need to progress further. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Praveen, you have something?
Yeah, good evening to everyone. Especially special thanks to Ravana and Rohini madam and all the Hyderabad and Warangal active Telangana Janavedika members. Today, Ravana has given more than 50% reservation to women. As this normally he has, today is the topic belongs to women. Maybe that's the reason. When it comes to women empowerment in India, from independence to now, if you see, a lot of changes has been happening. Maybe due to culture that India has been adopted to, the women was not able to come in front and have actively participated in a lot of political and other aspects. But when we see in administration department, like from 1972, Kiran Bedi was the first IPS officer. But when we see now, there are a lot of women IPS and IAS officers. And at the same time, in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, Usman University has only one woman from engineering college in 70s out of 500 students. But when we see today, we have a lot of girls who are studying engineering and other professional courses. Like this, if you see, we have a local body elections, 50% reservation, as Madam said and other spokesperson said. So the power is not given to the woman, I mean, that has been grabbed again by the men in the form of husbands or in the form of brothers or in the form of sons. Though it was the case, but India definitely, I mean, my guru is said that women will be having 16%, I mean, 16 times more patient than a man in general, but that's a God gift compared to men. So like the same way, we have unfortunately still India is growing like a nation, but when it comes to, we have father of nation, but we don't have a mother of nation. That's unfortunate. We should have brought a lot of changes when it comes to women empowerment, and in CRPC, IPC, and evidence and constitution, we are bringing a lot of acts and amendments to our constitution when it comes to women, acts against women. But when it comes to in real picture, the clear power has not been given it, I can say. Once again, thanks to Ramana and the madam and all the members. Thank you very much.
I would only like to say something, one point from Praveen, who said that, we need to be patient. I think women so far has been so much patient. We have been still patiently waiting for the bill to be passed in the parliament. Every parliament session we hope, this time perhaps the reservation bill will be passed, but it's not seeing the light of the day. So I don't know how much more patience we need to have. But yes, thank you for being a part of the forum.
Anjan Rao sir, you want to give any observations or speak? Anjan Rao garu. Anjan Rao sir.
Reddy garu. Reddy garu.
Good evening, Anas, and very good evening, madam. Really, first, most touching analysis by you, madam, today. And before I ask you a question, firstly, I respect my Guruji, T. Purushottam Rao garu, and we are living in a country where the woman is worshipped, madam, in 8 forms. She is worshipped in this country, in this great history.
meeting aitandi.
And
Hello?
Sir, mute your answer, please.
Yeah, if we go to the Western countries, madam, we don't find a family bond over there. Compared to our country, we have the great family bond over here, and the protection of the family bond, that strong family bond, and the tradition and the culture and everything, whatever you say that is protected by a woman, madam, rather than a man. What I personally feel is, and of course, yeah, it's unfortunate that we are going through some atrocities and we are hearing here and there. It's very unfortunate, madam. And my straight question to you is, to stop this sort of atrocities over women, of course, we have a bill, something like that. This Nirbhaya and all that they brought, but any something strong measures should be to be taken to eradicate this sort of atrocities on women, madam. And that's my question. And thank you, Ramana, for conducting such a beautiful meetings every week. Conducted really, it's our pleasure, really, bringing a great professors from great scholars from different universities and get in touch with us. Really, it's a boon for us, Anna. Really, in this pandemic situation, you are conducting such a massive program, which should be admired by each and everyone. Thank you so much, Ramana.
Yeah, Mr. Manovish Reddy, your question as to, I think all the women on this panel perhaps would agree with me. We don't need to be worshipped. We need to be respected for what we are, what our capabilities are, what our capacities are. What is the use of this worship and they are not respected? That is one question that I would say. And secondly, when you talk of, what can be done to fast pace, the government has done a lot through Nirbhaya. We have set up fast paced courts and we are trying our best. They have given teeth to the laws, but they can only bite and act as a deterrent if we are willing to change our mindset. If you all remember, perhaps, and you all listened to once our Prime Minister said from the ramparts of the Red Fort, when you ask your woman, girl, where are you going and what time you are going to come back? Why don't we ask the same question to the boys? Where are you going? When will you come? What are you going to do? If those things start happening, perhaps there will be a change that we want to see and be respected. And it's good that we in the past had many women as our goddesses or whatever we have, worshipper. So, but I think more than the worship status, please give us more respect and allow us to live up to fulfillment, to fulfill our potential. That to me, I think is more important. Personally, that's what I feel. Any more questions?
Yeah, last, anything? Birju, you want to ask anything? Shyam.
సార్ అశోక్ బాబు గారు ఉన్నారు, ఏదో క్వశ్చన్ అడిగారు. పెళ్లి అశోక్ బాబు గారు.
ఎందుకంటే స్వేచ్ఛ సంకల్పంలో దుర్వినియోగం అవకాశం ఉంది. స్వేచ్ఛ తప్ప చెవులకి వారి సొంత నిర్ణయాలను తీసుకుంటారు. జాన్ రాబర్ట్
Audible, we're not able to hear anything.
Yeah, Shyam, you are not audible, Shyam.
Dr. Shyam.
Hello.
Yeah, now you go ahead.
Hello. జనవేదిక సభ్యులకు అందరికీ నా నమస్కారాలు. గురుగారు మా పురుషోత్తమరావు సార్కి నమస్కారాలు, రామన్న గారికి నమస్కారాలు. మనం తెలుగు తల్లి జై హో. స్త్రీ లేనిది ప్రపంచంలో, అందువల్ల స్త్రీని మనం ఎంత గౌరవిస్తామో అంత ముందుకు వెళ్తామని నేను భావిస్తున్నాను. మా గురువు గారు కూడా అదే చెప్తారు. దిస్ ఇస్ వెరీ గ్రేట్ వర్క్. స్త్రీని కాపాడడం మగవాళ్ళ ధర్మం కాబట్టి మనం ఇది జీవితంలో రాబోయే తరానికి కూడా స్త్రీకి ఉన్న వాల్యూ, మన దేశము చాలా వాల్యూని కాపాడుకోవాలనేసి మన కల్చర్లో ఉన్న శక్తులు, మనము స్త్రీలను ఎంత గౌరవిస్తామో అది ప్రపంచ వ్యాప్తం ప్రపంచ వ్యాప్తంగా ప్రచారం చేయాలనేసి మన కల్చర్ ని, స్త్రీలను మనం ఎంత గౌరవిస్తామో అది ప్రపంచ వ్యాప్తంగా పరిచయం చేయాలని నేను ఎప్పుడు అనుకుంటాను. ఈ అవకాశం ఇచ్చినందుకు మా జనవేదికకు నా నమస్కారాలు. జై హో.
Thank you, Shyam. Thank you. Sagarao sir.
పేరమ్మా జ్వరం వచ్చింది లేదు కింద బంద్ కరి మत कल स्टॉप करें.
సాగరరావు సార్, మీరు ఏమైనా మాట్లాడతారా సార్? సాగర్రావు గారు. అశోక్ బాబు సార్.
సార్ నమస్కారం సార్. అయితే ఇవాళ మేడం చెప్పిన ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ అన్ని టైం టు టైం మార్చుకుంటూ అంటే సొసైటీకి ఏవి నీడ్స్ ఉన్నాయో వాటిని ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ పాలసీస్ని డెవలప్ చేసుకుంటూ ఈవెన్ మినిస్ట్రీ కూడా ఏర్పడిన పరిస్థితి అయినా మేడం చూపెట్టిన ర్యాంకుల్లో వెనుకబడిపోవడానికి ముఖ్యంగా కారణం టోటల్ సొసైటీలో ఈ గ్రేడెడ్ అన్ఈక్వాలిటీ ఉండడం, విమెన్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ ఉండడం, జెండర్ డిస్క్రిమినేషన్. ఇవాళ వాళ్ళు ఎన్నో హర్డిల్స్ను ఎదుర్కొని వస్తున్న క్రమంలో ఇవాళ టోటల్ ఎంప్లాయ్మెంట్ విషయంలో కూడా అంటే చదువుకున్న విద్యార్థులు యువత అందులో విమెనే కానీ మెన్నే కానీ వాళ్ళందరికీ ఉపాధి ఉద్యోగం లేని పరిస్థితి. దానివల్ల కూడా ఇవాళ అనుకున్న మేరకు అభివృద్ధి చెందలేదని నా అభిప్రాయం. థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్ సార్.
Yes, Ashok Raghur, you are right that women are not whatever levels we had to reach, boys or girls or women, it's not getting, because education, as we have seen and as the education statistics shows, and just now, and one of the panelists, his person who's attending is Dr. Nalini Junior, who works in education sector. As she herself said, and she's also a part of the Andhra Expert Committee, she may agree, and that women when you come to higher education, the percentage keeps dropping. Our graph is primary, middle, year, higher secondary, graduation, post-graduation, it is line. There's no movement, and when women who are specialized, who have the opportunity to grow, they're not completing, or even those who are scientists or those who are in various academic, who have achieved whatever they could in field of education, because of the certain constraints that womanhood brings on to them, with the marriage responsibility, child rearing, all actually have inhibiting, limit her from performing what she can or live up to the potential. So we have not even looked at the way, if we are talking of improving workforce participation, what is the policy that the government thinks to channelize and use these women, the untapped potential of the women who are educated, who are at home? Can we create an atmosphere or an opportunity where at least now we have work from home pandemic situation, and so can this in a longer term also channelize and help women who want to contribute, but because of certain reasons is not able to come out of the house? Can we have some policies where she can look at part-time employment, even in whatever sector she wants to do? We have to look at greater women's participation, but just by saying we are planning to improve it by 30%, and today by 2022 is that the aim of 30%? Today half of the 21 was almost gone, and we are till at 20.7, maybe another 1.2 point increase. So what is the going forward? It's not possible. We have to think out of box thinking perhaps needs to be required, and thought how women participation can be greater, and what are the areas where she can, from living at home while completing her responsibilities, she can take on. So we really need to explore that, because otherwise the woman's potential which is there is being wasted and not used properly.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Madam Vijayalakshmi Madam. Professor Vijayalakshmi Madam. It's been a long time since we heard you, ma'am. Professor Vijayalakshmi Madam.
సాగర్రావు గారు వచ్చిండ్రా?
వచ్చారా?
వచ్చినారు.
ఓకే, సాగర్రావు సార్ మాట్లాడండి సార్. సాగర్రావు సార్. Professor Vijay Chandar Garu just joined. I'm happy that you have joined, sir. I'm very happy. This moment also you have joined. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, it's a closing time, sir. We have only 5 minutes time. We are closing. Yeah, Uma. Uma Maheshwari.
Good evening, Anna. Good evening to all members. TJV Adhyakshul Ramana garu. It was a very nice lecture from Rohit towards him. Thank you very much.
Vijay Chandar Garu, you want to just...
Namaskaram. Etla unnaru? How are you? Hello? Namaskaram.
Good sir, good sir.
Sir, namaskaram. Thank you చూద్దామని చాలా రోజుల తర్వాత వచ్చాను. I'm happy to see you back. The activity is going on.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. So for now, I just want to see you, and I will be happy to join sometime, right, sir? Thank you. Thank you. So nice to have you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Yeah. So, ma'am, thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation and expression, and it was an enlightenment to all the participants, ma'am. And we, Telangana Janavedika, would like to work with you on different fields, more so about the women empowerment, and we will definitely be troubling you, and we'll be roping in you almost every time whenever we find it is necessary that we should have somebody on this panel. We'll definitely request you to join us, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. And President Garu.
Sir. Okay, anyway, Telangana Janavedika వచ్చినటువంటి విచ్చేసినటువంటి జూమ్ ఆన్లైన్ మీటింగ్ విచ్చేసినటువంటి ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి, ముఖ్యంగా ఎంపవర్మెంట్, ఉమెన్ ఎంపవర్మెంట్ పాలసీస్ అండ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ ఇన్ ఇండియా అనేటువంటి అంశం పైన డాక్టర్ రామా రోహిణి గారు కీలకోపన్యాసం ఇచ్చారు. వారికి మా తెలంగాణ జనవేదిక తరఫున ప్రత్యేకమైనటువంటి ధన్యవాదాలు మేడం. అదేవిధంగా ఈనాటి కార్యక్రమంలో పాల్గొన్నటువంటి ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి, ముఖ్యంగా జైపాల్ గారికి, ప్రొఫెసర్ సుధాకర్ గారికి, ప్రొఫెసర్ నళిని గారికి, అదేవిధంగా ప్రీతి షా గారికి, జేమ్స్ గారికి, ప్రవీణ్ సాగర్ గారికి, మనోజ్ రెడ్డి గారికి, అశోక్ బాబు గారికి, మరియు సాగర్ రావు గారికి, ఉమామేశ్వర రెడ్డి, విజయ్ చంద్ర గారికి, ఇతర మిత్రులందరికీ పేరు పేరున ధన్యవాదాలు తెలియజేసుకుంటూ, వచ్చే వారము మరొక కార్యక్రమంతో మరొక అంశంతో కలుసుకుంటామని తెలియజేసుకుంటూ ఈనాటి ఈ కార్యక్రమం ముగిస్తుందని తెలియజేసుకుంటూ అందరికీ నమస్కారం, మరొక్కసారి నమస్కారం తెలియజేస్తూ
Thank you very much.
థ్యాంక్ యూ
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you very much, Ramu Garu. I'm always available. If you think I can contribute to something, definitely I will. Thank you. Very much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you.
Bye, good night.
All of you, good night. Next week we'll meet again. With a 2 hour more relaxation, I think we can have a comfortable daytime in Telangana. Thank you so much.
Sir, good night. Sir, good night. Bye.
Good night, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night. Thank
Yeah, no. In this lockdown, all men are saved by women.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. Absolutely, you're right.
Then what, Anna?